Good evening, everyone.
How's everyone doing? Now, come on, honestly, tell me, how's everyone doing? All right. It's true, we did have to hunt Shane down a little bit, and so we've all been
Desperate?
We're all fighting poets now, right? Like, we're all fighting poets, which has to be one of the best mascots I've ever heard of. So, but yeah, right? I mean, there's a lot of great mascots, but fighting poets pretty good, especially for what we're doing here today. So yeah, glad you're doing well.
I'm going to get back on script. I'm Ashley Alvarado. I'm the manager of public engagement at KPCC, and we're an NPR affiliate here in LA.
And I'm John Cohn. I'm the managing producer of KPCC In Person. That's KPCC's events and engagement platform. And so once and for all, welcome to the Robinson Theater at the Ruth B. Shannon Center for the Performing Arts at Whittier College.
I'm glad you're practicing your applause because I'm now going to ask how many of you are KPCC listeners, and let us know by a show of applause.
Everybody in the room is listening to KPCC. Okay, so while you got the applause going, by a quick show of applause, how many of you are checking out a KPCC event for the first time right now? Excellent. Thank you so much for coming.
We're here today because Southern California is full of untold stories, but as we found, there are even more unheard stories.
And so we really wanted to change that, so UnHeard LA, the stories of where you live, was born.
We began by reaching out to fellow Angelinos and just asking, tell us a story about you or your community in whatever format feels natural to you.
And to be honest, we weren't really looking for polished storytellers, right? We just put it out. Tell us a story about you, your community, and let's see what happens. And we were pretty quickly surprised by the number of interested parties and submissions we got. Over 250 people submitted stories, spoken words, songs, video, visuals, all kinds of stuff, a range of stuff. And then Ashley and I had the difficult task of saying, all right, how do we turn this into 3 live shows?
But we're here for our very first live show tonight, and we're featuring stories that come from a range of people, some who've been on stage before, some who've never been on stage, but each and every one of them was willing to go along with us as we worked on developing their stories, and they're all sharing their experiences as a way to connect, celebrate, and illuminate the diversity and complexity of our region.
So as these experiences are recounted by those that live them, they inevitably include a range of observations and perspectives. As a non-advocacy, nonpartisan media organization, just a reminder that what you hear and see today is reflective of our courageous community storytellers and not necessarily an endorsement by KPCC SCPR. Thank you to the California Wellness Foundation for supporting this project and really making UnHeard LA possible. And in addition to being in person, KPCC is on air and online, those other 2 sibling platforms at KPCC. And so for today's show, we are live video streaming, Facebook living, and audio recording.
We're also encouraging you to use your cell phones. We just ask that you silence them and maybe dim the brightness. We invite you to engage with us on social media. Our handle is KPCC In Person, and we are using the hashtag UnHeardLA. We just ask that you do not use any flash or video.
So no show would be complete without a host. So please join me in welcoming actor, writer, collaborator, educator, Watts Village Theater Company artistic director, native Angelino, and UnHeard LA host, Bruce Lemon.
Ooh, it's a lot of people here tonight. Oh, hey. Welcome humans, storytellers, listeners, and everybody at home who is stealing their neighbor's Wi-Fi to be with us live today. Welcome. My name is, hold on. My name is Bruce Lemon, and I will be your host, your tour guide, your wingman tonight if you're here on a date. I got you. Anybody here on a date? Anybody? Nope. Wait, up there. Yeah, I see you. Wait, you know that guy? Yeah, look, great guy. Great person, a friend of mine. He saved my life one time. I was drowning in the La Brea tar pits. Seriously, true story. See, I got you. As John said, I am the artistic director of Watts Village. That is a theater company in Watts, which is where I'm from. I represent South Central, or as we affectionately call it, the East Side, wherever I go. Every neighborhood across this city is different, and your experience in that neighborhood changes depending on your demographic. The 16-year-old boy and the 92-year-old grandmother in the same family have very different lives in the same city, different joys, fears, anxieties, and triumphs. Where are you from? No, really, that's a serious question. Where are you from, okay? Everybody, on the count of three, I need you to shout out where you're from, whether it's like where you were born, where you live today, where you live in your heart. Just shout it out. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, I think I just heard Watts. Try it again. Nice. Yeah, where are you from? That's a loaded question. It's never a question I really wanted to hear when I was growing up, walking to school through different gang territories, but it's one that I love to answer today as a representative of what's good in the hood as we work to change the narrative and highlight the beauty. Every hood USA, they're all just communities of people living, loving, and chasing dreams. Where are you from? Is it the physical location of your birth? Is it the city you've called home since your parents immigrated here in the 90s? Is it where you live as an artist, as an architect, as an activist? As you continue to ask yourself where you're really from, I need you to join me in welcoming our first storytellers to the stage. We have Eddie M. Ghana Jr. and Stephanie Sager, also known as Steady.
I am an LA native.
And I am a Bay Area transplant.
My mom, she immigrated in 1978 to Chicago, or as she called it, the coldest place in the world. My dad immigrated to LA in 1982, or as he called it, the year E.T. was in theaters. They both came to the United States for the potentially homogenous reason to find a better life. For many Filipinos, a better life did not mean enriching themselves, but helping out the entire family back home. Every month, my parents never failed to send care packages known as balikbayan boxes full of essentials, toiletries, clothes, of course, candy. Also important to note, my parents moved from the Philippines during the reign of Ferdinand Marcos, a dictator who thrust the country into martial law. My dad, he was studying to be a lawyer at the time, and he was studying law because he said he wanted to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. But because martial law was declared, he wasn't sure if the country would even need lawyers anymore. My mom, on the other hand, was a nurse. She was part of what's called the brain drain, in which educated Filipinos look for jobs overseas because the country is unable to supply jobs at home. In fact, one could say that the Philippines' biggest export is not a product, but its people.
To trace my story is to follow my parents from the Philippines. My dad came here in September 1975. He was a teenager and played basketball for a local high school in San Jose. He also worked at A&W, which he would remind me every time I visited. From time to time, he would visit the Philippines. So in February 1986 was when he met my mother. After a series of dates and becoming official, they were engaged in April and only had about a month to plan their marriage in June. This was 1986. Rather than going back to the States, my dad stayed with my mom as she was waiting for her visa to be approved. She worked as a doctor of internal medicine. In 1987, she became pregnant, and they wanted so much for me to be born in America. 2 months before I was born, my dad and mom came here January 1988. My mom's education translated into a unit assistant at a hospital, and my dad continued to work as a storage mover. They lived in Sunnyvale for about 3 years and worked full-time, overtime, until they were able to finally afford a house in Union City. My story is this: I was conceived in the Philippines, but born here in America.
Being the child of immigrants is something that we carry with pride.
Always.
At the same time, as someone who carries the privilege of being born here,
Us married here.
immigration status is something I didn't have to actively think about consistently.
However, as someone who is brown, as people who are brown, we have to carry the look of the so-called perpetual foreigner.
Like when someone asks you, "Where are you from?"
I'm
from Pico Rivera,
City,
Pico.
UC. I'm from the Bay Area.
I'm from Los Angeles.
I'm from 510.
I'm from 310.
Where are you from?
I'm from California.
The state with a roadmap of memories. I feel connected. Follow the 101 from the Golden Gate Bridge
To downtown Los Angeles. Take the 5 to the 55 to the 405 to Irvine.
Take the 405 to the 55 to 5 to Anaheim.
From the 5 to the 101 to the 110 to the 10 West.
Koreatown is where I'll start a family.
No. Where are you from?
Our families are from the Philippines. My mom is from Las Piñas City, Metro Manila.
Gonzaga, Cagayan. My dad is from Cabugao, Ilocos Sur.
Binakayan, Cavite. My
My
parents speak
parents speak
Tagalog,
Ilocano,
and
and
I
I
only
only
understand
understand
it.
it.
I speak English, and they understand it as Americanized. Haven't I written this poem before?
But let me get back to your question. My family is from a sweltering country that is fattened by pork barrels and fried by a burning question.
Bakit ba ito nangyari? Bakit ba ito nangyari? Bakit ba ito nangyari?
I am not going to translate because it will lose its meaning.
Meaning, why should the Philippines trust a country that doesn't let it speak for itself?
I know what is happening. I know what you are trying to ask me.
I know what you are going to say next.
No, I am not from a lumpia you ate at a friend's birthday party. No, I am not from a halo halo you ordered at Jollibee.
No, I am not from a balut you saw on a rerun episode of Fear Factor.
No, I am not from a nurse that examined you months ago and was so hospitable.
No, I am not from a dream vacation to sleep on white beaches. No, I am not from a whale shark on a billboard that said, everything is fun there. We are not from the preconceived notions of where you think we are from. So, where are you from? I come from a place, the same place.
Where you ask yourself the same question,
Where am I from?
and the answer should always be,
I'm from here,
right here.
Thank you, Steady. On February 20th, 2017, our next storyteller witnessed his neighborhood moments before and immediately after the tragic death of Whittier police officer Keith Boyer, a 27-year veteran of the Whittier Police Department. The next day, he sat down to write about it, and today he is here to share that with you. Please join me in welcoming Joshua Rigsby.
A police officer was killed a mile and a half from my home in Whittier yesterday. Another was shot but survived. The suspect was also shot and taken into custody. I passed by the scene before the incident occurred on the way to get my car smog tested. Before the suspect crashed the stolen car, before the policeman came to investigate, before the gun battle. When I drove by, the scene looked like it always looks. Leafy, suburban, uninteresting in the way that all mild LA County wealth is uninteresting. At the smog place, I watched news trucks drive by, and on my way home, I saw that a helicopter was perched stationary above the scene as I tried to negotiate the tangled confusion of streets closed by police activity. I called my wife to see if she knew what was going on. Reports, even today, the day after, are a bit hazy. Several news outlets reported the suspect was a known gang member, which seemed odd. The stolen car belonged to a man who was murdered earlier that morning in East LA. It was odd because the Whittier shooting occurred a 10-minute caddy walk from the Friendly Hills Country Club. Because while the city of Whittier is only 23% non-Hispanic white, that whiteness clings to the hills on the north side of town like a receding mountain snow. Gang members are seen as a foreign invasive species in that neighborhood. Some accounts say the police officers had started to pat the man down when he pulled out a gun and shot them at close range. A pat-down seems like an odd follow-up to a traffic accident, but then so does an actual exchange of gunfire. I live in a working-class apartment building. My neighbors are mechanics and machinists and school bus drivers. None of us are gang members. None of us are country club members either. Most of the residents are not white, but I am, and unless you count an occasional fondling by the TSA, I've never been patted down by anyone. I've heard stories from my friends of color who've been pulled over, ripped from their car, and slammed onto the hood of a police cruiser because they matched the description of a suspect in the area. Description here defined as sex and skin tone. They perfected the art of de-escalation. They've had to practice. Everyone knows the recent stories of police violence. They've entered the public domain along with a schism in alliances and political posture. Which lives matter? Which lives matter more, black or blue? I love this community. I love my apartment, and I love this city. It grieves me that it is hurting. I didn't attend the police memorial last night, though, in part because I didn't know the officer personally, and in part because I didn't want to be seen as taking a side or a political position. For my friends on the left, if I attended that memorial, I would be aligning myself with systemic injustice. And for those on the right, I would be implying, if only subtly, that the movements against police violence are somehow illegitimate. I work as an Uber driver to support myself through school. Last June, I picked up an off-duty cop at 3 in the morning who'd gotten drunk at a friend's house. He was embarrassed that a member of the public would see him drunk. He said it weighed on him to constantly portray himself as an upstanding citizen. It also hurt him personally when people disparaged cops or when they protested in the streets. I'm just trying to be the good guy. I just want everyone to be safe and happy. I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm risking my life to get the bad guys. I'm doing it for these people, for the ones who live in those communities. I'm not racist. I'm not. He grabbed my arm with a heavy hand, tears in his eyes. I'm not, man. I'd lay down my life for them. I nodded. I was afraid of his size and his emotionality. He seemed sincere to me. A few months later, I picked up someone from a Black Lives Matter protest in Pasadena. She had to wade through the signs and drums and chanting to find my car. She was flushed with the noise and excitement of it all. It was hard to figure out how to get her home. The protest had shut down the intersection in front of us. The other passengers asked her questions. She'd found out about it on social media and had joined in impulsively. A black man had died in police custody the night before, a few blocks away. Well, more power to you, the passenger said, and I joined them. I meant it. Black men should not be harassed or killed by the police. I don't know what to say. I am grieved. It is unfair that my race affords me the luxury to look at this problem as a distant observer. An officer can take off their uniform, but a person of color cannot take off their skin. Systems are unjust, but they also, at times, dispense justice. I don't want to live in naivete or ignorance or subscribe to some false dichotomy. I don't want to pretend that problems don't exist. I don't want to lie. I want to be as woke a white man as I'm capable of being, not because it's trendy in liberal circles, but because it's right. The problem is that moral clarity is rarely pure or easy or simple. I love you, Whittier, and I'm sorry for the loss of this officer. And for every person of color who suffered at the hands of injustice, I'm sorry too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Stay woke. If you had an overhead view of LA, it's a lot like a world map. You have Chinatown, Thai town, Filipino town, a little Armenia, and more. So many tiny countries just scattered all over the city. You're driving through Koreatown, then you're in Hollywood, which, let's face it, is another country. You hang a left, and boom, you're in Little Ethiopia. And speaking of, today, an estimated 96,000 Ethiopian immigrants and their descendants now call Los Angeles home. And some have a very surprising lineage. I mean, you never know who you're standing next to until you hear their story. And here to share hers, please welcome Aiden Kefalu.
I am a child of story. My family is built on them, and everything I do is shaped by them. One story that has strongly shaped my life is the one my grandmother has always told me about her great aunt, Queen Zoditu, who, yes, you heard it right, was the queen of my family's homeland, Ethiopia, and appointed Emperor Haile Selassie to rule after her. My grandmother told me how he, along with both of my grandfathers, helped defeat the Italians when they tried to occupy the country during World War II. Never forget to fight for what you believe, she always said, as any good grandma should, but don't fight even after the war is done. The war's over. The Italians aren't enemies anymore, so if you find a good one, get married. It's high time. She wants great grandkids, and I am not necessarily ready for that. But my dad and uncles and my mom also agree they want some kids, or too. But they tell a different story, one that merges their family's fight for justice in Ethiopia and their fight for the same in America. They were king amongst kings back home. They built up their towns with businesses and schools and churches. But in America, they picked tomatoes as migrant workers and filled gas tanks and parked cars in Beverly Hills. They began at the bottom. And my mom tells me how her white neighbor in Carson wanted nothing to do with her when she moved in next door, calling her things she had never heard in Ethiopia, even covering her kids' eyes so they wouldn't see a black person. And then eventually they became like sisters when she moved out. This was America as an Ethiopian. These stories have become a part of my consciousness. They have been vital in helping me navigate communities in America, a country still untangling its own story, its own identity, its own fight. And just as America seems it's straddling two worlds, one of the old order and one of the new, I straddle two worlds as an Ethiopian American. One ancient, the other young. One traditional, the other irreverent. One homogenous, the other diverse. One my parents and the other mine. And now it's high time I make my own stories and have some dignity, as my grandmother would say. I mean, there's no way I can top being a queen of a country, but I'll do my best as a first-generation Ethiopian American. Now, the song I'm about to sing is a song that's going to be on my album Lost Tribes, which I'll be recording in July. I wrote this song, it's called I and I, when I realized that though I may feel lost on this journey, I'm not alone. said I can't stop the window. I can't stop the rain. No, you won't hear no thunder calling out my name. I said I can't make the sunrise, and I can't part the seas, but you and I and you can do most anything. I said when the fire it keeps burning and the winds they fail to cease, said when the journey comes a burden and my soul just needs release, I said I can't stop the wind now. Said I can't part the seas, but you and I said I and you can do most anything. I said if you hold on, said if you hold on, said if you hold on to my hand, said if you hold on, said if you hold on, said if you hold on to my hand, then I and you and I can do most anything. I said when the winds, yeah, they keep blowing and my house it comes unfolding, said who will heal my burdened mother, who will mend my brother's needs. I said no, I can't stop the wind, no. Said I can't part the seas, but you and I said I and you can do most anything. I said if you hold on, said if you hold on now, said if you hold on to my hand, said if you hold on, said if you hold on, said if you hold on to my hand, then I and you and I, said I and you and I, said I and you and I can do most anything. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Adrian. That was beautiful. Hey, you ever watch The Wire? Anybody? Yeah? It's probably one of the best shows ever created for television, in my opinion. Now, one of the biggest characters in that show was the city of Baltimore. You see where I'm going here? Locale, environment, location, where you at. Place can play a major part in your story. Now, UnHeard LA is happening in 3 distinctly different parts of LA. Today, we're in Whittier, which you can see throughout our show in these shots taken by our very own Bill Youngblood. Now, Whittier also has its own story, and here to share a little part of that story, welcome back to the stage, KPCC's Ashley Alvarado.
photo on my desk. And at first glance, it doesn't look like anything special. A truck is delivering a stove. A family is waiting in the front yard. There are 2 trees, trimmed grass, and 1940s Whittier. But you see, this town holds a very special place in my heart. My great-grandfather, Arnie Hansen, moved here after World War II. He brought his family, my great-grandma Tiny, she was this tall, and my grandma Karen, from their home in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. And here they started a new life. My father and uncles grew up trading off summers here. And as a kid, I would visit the house on Dickey Street, now shaded by 2 towering trees. We'd go to Jack's Salad Bowl and Scotty's. We'd visit Rose Hills at Christmas to see the lights and where my Grammy and Grampy would one day be buried. We'd dine at Rocky Cola and explore an always changing uptown Whittier. This is a town named for a poet and known for a president. It was rocked by an earthquake and reshaped by shifting demographics. Whittier is, in so many ways, providing glimpses into LA's future. And it was, from the very start, a source of inspiration for UnHeard LA, the stories of where you live. Whittier College, like the city, was named for John Greenleaf Whittier, a prominent Quaker, poet, and leader in the abolitionist movement. What started as a school of 25 has grown to serve about 1,600 students, more than half of them people of color. Just look at the theater around you. You're currently sitting in the Robinson Theater at the Ruth B. Shannon Center for the Performing Arts. And, echoing the values of the college, it is committed to programming that reflects the diverse interests and cultural backgrounds of Southern California. I couldn't think of a better place to convene our very first UnHeard LA show than here. Thank you to all the folks at Whittier College and the Ruth B. Shannon Center for making this possible. And thank you, Whittier, for letting my family plant our roots here.
Thank you again, Ashley. All right, y'all, we need to talk, all right? No, seriously. 1.8 million adults in LA County experience mental illness, which really means we all do. I mean, that's 1 in 5 adults. Odds are, many of us in this very room are either dealing with it themselves or you know somebody else who is. It's something that can be difficult for everybody involved, and as a result, it tends to be something we don't talk about. Our next storyteller is making an effort to change that for herself. Please join me in welcoming Nancy Doe.
I've been diagnosed with a complex mental illness called borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Unlike my bipolar disorder, BPD is not a result of dysfunctional brain chemistry, but is instead caused by many years of childhood trauma. I grew up in a violent household with a belligerent alcoholic father who beat my mother regularly, who in turn beat me regularly. The best way I can explain BPD to you is to talk about fighting dogs. Fighting dogs are subject to a brutal lifestyle where they are chained up all day, isolated, and physically mutilated. As a result, they are poorly socialized and aggressive. Now, we know that these dogs are not inherently bad. They've just been taught bad behaviors, which they continue to exhibit even when they've been removed from their abusive environments. In order for them to function in society, they must undergo intense rehabilitation and therapy to rewire their brains and change their conduct. Because of my upbringing, I have learned bad behaviors that have become deeply ingrained in my personality, that impede my ability to maintain healthy relationships and lead a stable life, and which require intense therapy. I suffered from various emotionally painful symptoms, including chronic emptiness, constant fears of abandonment, rage, and relentless suicidal ideation. Because I had little control over these symptoms, I isolated from people and led a very lonely, depressed, and hopeless life for many years. I've attempted suicide 7 times and have been cutting myself since I was 16. One of my first major attempts was made in July of 2013. I was so determined to die that I overdosed on all of my psychotropic medications and took all of my dog's pain medicine. I was admitted to a psychiatric hospital for the first time in my life. This particular facility was overcrowded and poorly maintained. It smelled, had terrible food, and housed a variety of individuals suffering from all sorts of mental conditions. Other patients included the elderly with dementia, people experiencing severe psychosis or hallucinations, substance abusers, and homeless individuals. Though a scary place to be, this lockdown unit kept me safe and got me stable. My initial diagnosis, which later turned out to be incorrect, was major depression. I was started on an antidepressant and discharged after 6 days on a 5150 hold. I enrolled into an intense therapy program where I attended sessions 5 days a week for 6 hours a day. Though the medication quelled my depression, it did nothing for my boiling irritability. I would later discover that these are symptoms of bipolar disorder, and that treating a person who has bipolar strictly with an antidepressant could lead to dangerous mania, and that's exactly what happened to me. After a month and a half of treatment, I returned to my job as a disability advocate. I thought I was cured because I felt super happy, like I was high on drugs. This feeling of euphoria is actually a symptom of mania. In October of 2013, my bipolar mania collided with my BPD symptoms, leading to an explosive and precarious situation. I had come home from work one day and discovered that my mom, who I live with, had fed my dogs human food, fried tofu to be exact. She said it was healthy for them because it was tofu. Now, this issue with feeding the dogs human junk has been a point of contention between my mom and I for many years and is a huge trigger for me. So, upon finding the tofu, I immediately flew into this uncontrollable fit of rage. When this happens, I experience agonizing internal conflict where my brain is telling me to behave like an adult, but my emotions are telling me to do what feels good. The rational adult often loses this battle. I disassociate from reality, and who I normally am, a calm and composed person, leaves the room, and in enters a tantrum-throwing 2-year-old monster who functions on pure emotion and has total control over my thoughts and behaviors. Upon discovering the tofu, and while screaming at my mom like I was undergoing an exorcism, I began to disrobe while walking through the house, all while throwing my clothes violently at my mom, until I was standing there, stripped down to my underwear, cursing her out. When enraged, I internalize the anger I feel, and I cut myself, often violently and forcibly with a pair of scissors until I draw blood. On the night of the tofu, while sobbing hysterically, I emerged from my room with an X-Acto knife and slashed at my arm while standing in front of my mom. At the time, I felt nothing, only excruciating and unbearable emotional pain. My mother began to freak out, and it was only then that I noticed the massive amounts of blood pouring out of my arm. To give you an idea of how bad my cuts were, my medical notes indicated they were 2 centimeters deep and about 2 inches long. My mom lost all logic in her complete state of shock. Instead of calling the ambulance, she became overly concerned with all the blood that was getting on the floor and proceeded to clean the tiles, which only fueled my fury and led to more banshee-like screaming. To make matters worse, when she finally realized that cleaning the floors wasn't at all helpful, she brought me a small box of Band-Aids, which I slapped away angrily while word vomiting profane and vulgar language. I instructed her to call 911, but she initially refused. She was afraid that I would be placed in a psych ward again, and in her mind, I wasn't mentally sick because old school Asian people don't understand, let alone acknowledge, mental illness. In the end, I called 911 myself. Everyone showed up. 5 sheriff deputies, 4 firefighters, and 2 EMTs, all males, staring at this half-naked, skinny little Asian girl sitting cross-legged on the floor, sobbing silently while covered in blood. At this point, I had sobered up from my disassociated state and had come back to reality. I was no longer enraged, and all I felt was incredible shame and embarrassment as these strangers looked down upon me. I ended up with 26 staples in my arm and now have scars that will follow me for the rest of my life. but I'm not ashamed of them. Though they elicit painful memories at times, they also remind me to feel blessed that I'm alive. They show me that I am resilient and determined, and they motivate me to work hard in my rehabilitation. Above all, they remind me to be compassionate towards myself. When I tell people I have mental illness, I often hear them say, "But you seem so normal." What society fails to realize is that individuals with mental disorders are regular, everyday people. We are just humans with a complex medical condition. We are your coworker with whom you laugh and joke. We're your uncle cooking burger patties on the barbecue, your grandpa reading the morning newspaper, or your daughter texting away on her phone. While we can certainly act strangely and may have many flaws, know that we don't choose to be that way. Like the fighting dog, we've just been living in painful circumstances that have, often against our will, resulted in behaviors we can't always control. But, like the dog, we are inherently good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Now, I can't recall the last time I received a handwritten letter. They feel personal. They take time. And if you get one, you know somebody really had a point to make. Now, I think it's important to make your voice heard, especially to those in power. And letter writing campaigns have helped change laws. They've affected policies that control our food, our schools, and more. Letter writing is considered by many to be a lost art. The United States Postal Service has data to support that idea, and if my mom's email account with over 40,000 unread messages is any indication, the urgency letters carry is fading as well. Well, our next storyteller came up with something that brings that urgency back home and places it right on your coffee table. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Eric Benjamins.
Never used a mic stand before, so bear with me. Can I handhold the mic?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Hey! All right. How's it going, everyone? In the weeks between election night and Inauguration Day, I organized a letter writing and book project called Last Day, First Day. The project encouraged, collected, and published letters written to President Obama on his last day in office and President Trump on his first. I was inspired after learning about the history of the White House Office of Presidential Correspondence and how during President Obama's terms he requested from that office to read 10 letters at the end of every day. I was struck by the intimacy of the gesture in reaching out to two presidents at one of the most significant moments of their careers, which was also a moment, of course, of tumultuous change for us all. Letters were accepted from all persons of any worldview, anywhere in the world, as long as you wrote to each president.
January 19th, 2017. January 20th, 2017. Dear President Obama, dear President Trump, you have faced an incredible amount of criticism, and you have always had your own way of ignoring that criticism and continuing on the path that you think is right. Many people disagree with that path. I hope you know in your heart what the good people of America really think of you and all you have done and all you want to do. In the end, history will recognize you for what you are, and all the rhetoric and misconceptions will drift away. I wish you the best for your future. Sincerely, sincerely, WJG.
Last Day, First Day champions letter writing in its most elastic sense. So spend time with the contributions and you'll quickly see that some well-structured prose is as much a letter as is a collage, a run-on sentence, an explicit loaded diatribe, a poem, a photograph, appropriated text, or even a blank page. Collectively, they provide an intimate snapshot from a community at a profoundly fractured moment in our political climate.
Salutations, Mr. President.
Hello, Mr. President.
It has been an amazing 8 years, and you've taken a torn country led by a misrepresentative leader and turned it into a place for change.
You cannot win everyone's hearts, but as long as you're true to your point and the majority of Americans have chosen you as their leader, people will learn to love you.
The future that you've opened up for newer generations have much to thank you for because of your long-term plans for a better country. My favorite was when you starred on Man vs. Wild with Bear Grylls.
I truly respect you, not necessarily everything you say, but because of your achievements and wealth. Remember that as president, you're the role model for children everywhere.
Student of Baruch College Campus High School.
Given the context, Last Day, First Day can most certainly be considered political, but I'm much more interested in how it exists as a document, which, by the way, is available for purchase on the world's most widely shopped online store, that celebrates writing as a means to communicate outward and reflect inward. This call wasn't about organizing a letter-sending service to the White House. Writers could do that on their own if they wanted to. But instead, it was about committing to the process and practice of writing as a means to sketch things out, to digest, to share with another, and to move forward.
Hey, Obama.
Greetings to you, Mr. Trump.
Honestly, I'm writing this as a writing assignment from my school in my language and composition class.
In all honesty, I didn't really look forward to you being our president. I actually wanted Obama to go for third term, but that's not possible.
I think I know more about you through Facebook and all those videos that people or the White House posts.
Since things can't be changed right now, I'm hoping for the best out of you for this country. This country is not yours or mine or anyone's. It's everyone's, and you're going to have to guide this big family through whatever comes your way.
America was complicated, and everything involved is complicated, but you managed.
But putting it out there, you took upon this role. Then be a good role model and be responsible. This isn't going to be a game nor a gamble.
Good luck to you.
All in all, Last Day, First Day presents 168 letters from writers around the world. They range from the former poet laureate of New Mexico to an 8-year-old slinging harsh one-liners. In the wake of this project, I feel compelled now more than ever to fight the good fight for writing as a practice. In the many discussions I had while working to collect letters, I was overwhelmed with how many had a general fear, avoidance, or lack of confidence in their abilities as a writer. It's as if we're haunted by a kind of capital W writing from our past that is conventional and strict, bound by the rules set in stone from fourth period English. But we're all capable of defining on our own terms how and when we can use writing as an accessible, flexible, and powerful tool to think, to make, and to share. When I talk about a practice of writing, I mean to emphasize that like going to the gym, it is an athletic endeavor. It requires work, practice, commitment. But whether via phone or with sticky note or in a sketchbook, commit to 5 words every morning, 50 pages every week, or something else entirely. And you'll see that this is a kind of practice that is less about rules and conventions than it is about reflection and agency. It's my hope that Last Day, First Day celebrates the grounding and generative possibilities for the writer today, especially as we continue through these uncertain and surreal times. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I need a copy of that book, ASAP signed, please. Thank you. Imagine living your whole life here, or at least as far back as you can remember. You know the history. You participate in the politics. You're active in your community. You have deep roots here. Your life is established with dreams on the horizon and family and friends cheering you on. But things can change. Our next storyteller can relate. Please join me in welcoming Brenda Gonzalez.
100 faces looking back at me. It's the fall of 2006. I'm 23 years old, and I'm about to teach American government. I just got this job 3 weeks before this day after completing my master's at Cal State Fullerton. What my students don't know is that even though I'm teaching American Government 100 at Cal State Fullerton, I had never voted, not once. I was one of those people that stayed at home on election night. Now, this wasn't because I wasn't interested in current events, because I was, and it wasn't because I wasn't involved in campaigns, because I had been. In fact, I was even the immediate past president of the College Democrats. So why hadn't I voted? Well, to answer that question, we have to flash back a few years before this. After working really hard and keeping up with honors classes with a lot of peers of mine that were much wealthier and had more resources, I received some devastating news, which felt devastating to a dramatic teenager. Instead of the beautiful campus by the beach, living away from my parents, I was going to have to settle for the state school and live at home. This was especially heartbreaking when I saw a lot of my peers packing up to move away for college. My choices for college were limited because of my immigration status, which had been in limbo since I was 4 years old. That's right, this is what an undocumented immigrant looks like. My parents and I came to the country when I was young, thinking very much that I was going to come visit Mickey Mouse. I didn't realize this was a permanent vacation. When my parents were actually younger than I am today, they made a very difficult choice to leave their careers, their homes, their families, to give my brother the highest quality of life possible. He had been diagnosed with a terminal illness which changed the course of all of our lives. And because of the difficult choice that my parents made, he had a thriving, successful life for the 17 years that he was with us. Now, because of misinformation and just not having the right information, or predatory lawyers, I should say, my parents did not have a pathway to citizenship for several years. Meanwhile, I became an adult and I was entering college as an undocumented immigrant. My parents had to pay out-of-state tuition even though I lived just a few miles from the campus that I was accepted to. This news made me pour myself into books and reading, and I worked super hard to get out of college in less than 5 years with a master's degree. And I chose political science as my major because I wanted to understand the forces around me that were keeping me from being American. During this time, my mom was able to, after thousands of dollars in legal fees, she was able to become a resident, and I at least had some recourse. This is when, at 23 years old, I had a legal work permit, and I was able to teach American government even though I wasn't a resident or a citizen. My family, like many other families, we flew here. We overstayed our visas. It's estimated that more than 40% of undocumented immigrants arrive the same way that we did, by plane. And the wall is not stopping us. Undocumented people are your neighbors, they're your gardeners, they're your dentists, they're your students. It's estimated that more than 13% of students in public schools in California today have at least one parent that is undocumented. But undocumented people are your community. And maybe one day they could be your American government professor.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. Thank you. Who are you? What are you? Where are you from? Questions that should have concrete answers but lend themselves to more fluid interpretations. And what's more fluid than poetry? If you didn't know, April is National Poetry Month, and our next storyteller is all about it. Please welcome Jonathan Rios.
I grew up in East LA, Montebello to be exact, where the stresses of life weighed heavily inward. I remember feeling trapped, exposure to what's possible was capped. Just being able to pay the bills was thought of as being apt, but you can see that being a cog in the wheel left people feeling zapped, crapped on, forgotten about, chapped pride, your life dreams set aside, scrapped. It's no wonder that you turn around one day and all of a sudden someone snapped and think nothing of a kidnap. At least that's what happened to me as a young chap. Seriously, I was kidnapped. And my mom saved me as she's been known to do in her own unusual way. That time, it was by running someone over with a Porsche. But that's another story for a different day. We never had much growing up, but somehow, at least once a year, my mom was always able to borrow a pickup truck. And she'd collect some of the apartment kids to take us to Venice Beach, to expose us of the true variety of what humanity had to offer. 4 Mexican kids bouncing around in the back of an old school camper shell pickup truck that had shag carpeting and smelled like wet dog, while Brenton Wood was casting a spell on me. Once we get within a mile of the water, we'd start looking for a spot, because my mom would be damned if she was going to spend half of our beach money on parking. And as soon as the engine cut off, we'd explode out of the back of the pickup truck like we were trying to escape from being kidnapped, which admittedly looks very similar, but in actuality feels way different. And so would begin our glorious speed march to the sand, Nirvana, the great equalizer. Because once we got to Venice Beach, it didn't matter where we were from, it didn't matter how much my mom made. The only 2 things that mattered were that we were true to ourselves and that we accepted everyone for who they truly were. And who was I? I was raised by blacks, schooled by whites. My mama was adopted, so I never felt right in my own skin. That's how I translated my culture, from Mexican to in my own skin. I learned Spanish from hip hop. This is for la raza, mentirosa. Break dancing on cardboard. Entiendo mucho, pero no hablo bien. El queso es viejo, ¿dónde está el baño? Yes, I drink horchata. Yes, my mama threw chanclas. I had a light-skinned cousin named Mandy. We all call her Blanca. I know enough to put cilantro on menudo. Culture, cilantro, cilantro, culture. I know what they smell and taste like, but I don't know how they were grown. When I was a young lad, my mom and I couldn't afford, had to grab a roof over our head. So instead, she begged and pled to have at least a bed to rest her baby boy's head that night, because I had school in the morning. My mom and I were homeless, but know this, sometimes life happens, you just can't control this. My mama protected me with a tent of love and acceptance. Because I had that, we still lived some semblance of normalcy. Our circumstances didn't define we. This is from my mama, who visibly showed me to respect myself, because if I don't, no one will. Skid Row was temporary because we connected to community, grasped the extended hand, and continued striving just to be the best me I can manifest to be. When I started making my way into society, her sense of propriety made her step aside as she started to hide from me. Didn't want to detour the rise in me, so I'd pick her up on the corner of Skid Row just to dine with me. We'd share a meal which allowed us to heal. It still seems so surreal. She'd always end with her normal spiel. It's okay, mijo. Don't worry about me. Just focus. I always thought that was bogus. But she did it out of love. It took years for me to know this. Despite my protest, I drop her off on the corner with some leftover steak and sodas. I was walking down the street the other day when a homeless gentleman looked my way and said a simple, "Hey." I said the same and then asked his name, and unexpectedly his eyes, they started to rain. He said it had been a year and a half since someone asked him his name. It was Peter, by the way, and we hugged. And I held him tightly to remind him even slightly that I see his light in me. Let us not ostracize, but look into each other's eyes and mutually realize that we're all human beings with lives to live. So give hope. We are the city of angels, not the city of angles, wrangling up tent cities like cattle, herding them to their new pasture, next exit off the 10 in Alvarado. Thank you for never losing hope in me. I will never lose faith in you. Thank you.
You're looking at him. Thank you. Thank you. Jonathan, thank you. Outdoor strip malls are everywhere in Southern California. But free parking, or at least a spot that doesn't have 15 signs telling you that you can, but can't, but might be able to park here for 15 minutes, or the whole day, or not at all, that's a totally different story. A story that screams LA. You know, it's amazing how some of these tiny details or memories can stick with you from childhood on, and just the sight of them can transport you, bringing you back home. Here to share a bit about one of those memories is Michael Jaime Becerra.
So the house I grew up in is still decorated by my mother's paintings. A girl climbing church stairs on a golden afternoon, a weathered artisan weaving a bowl from a length of straw, waves breaking against a rocky shoreline somewhere along the California coast. There are images from magazines or photographs that she found so striking, so memorable, that she felt compelled to paint them, to sit at night in the garage, which she calls her studio, where she squeezes by the car to get to her easel, and the only light comes from fluorescent tubes overhead. One year, she offered to paint something for me as a birthday present, and I knew immediately which image I wanted. A picture of a free parking sign I'd taken years before in the parking lot for the Valley Mall, a winding outdoor strip of shops in El Monte. My mother is the sort to pay attention to details, to worry about capturing the angle of someone's nose or the exact glint in an eye, and so I wasn't surprised that some time had passed before the painting had been completed. At some point, I happened upon it partly finished on its side in her bathtub, and I remember thinking with excitement that it would be done soon. And a year passed, then a few more. When she finally gave me the painting, it was 2014, and a decade had gone by. Now, as a boy in the late 70s, the Valley Mall was where my mother would come to pay our gas bill, where she would park when she'd visit JCPenney's to make the monthly payment. Occasionally, she would roll down the windows in her car, a white Pontiac, and leave me while she ran her errands. It's unthinkable now, leaving a young child alone in a car, but this was common then. I still remember waiting for her, the Pontiac's interior cavernous and upholstered in fake maroon leather, the car under the shade of the scrub oaks there, a breeze rustling through the leaves, the smell of fresh caramel corn from the newsstand nearby. And the decades that have passed, the Valley Mall has changed. Now you can find cornmeal huaraches topped with beans and carne asada and red or green salsa, or a custom piñata, or a white lacy dress and an impossibly tiny and thin gold crucifix for your goddaughter's baptism. To me, all of this is a showcase of the city's entrepreneurial spirit, even if the newsstand is empty, if the corner building that housed an indoor swap meet is boarded up, available, either for lease or to be torn down. As a writer, all of this is hugely important to me, to my work, which is largely set in El Monte and inextricably connects culture, identity, and memory, even as time continues its inevitable, unstoppable passage. And in all these years, this sign has survived. I've expected it to be gone, either vandalized beyond recognition or demolished by some late-night drunk driver or simply replaced by something more modern. Every time I see the sign, it brings me joy, the old world surviving in the new, the sign's familiar, time-worn blue just a few shades darker than the sky, its white banner ruffled by an imaginary gust of wind. While the sign evokes all sorts of memories for me, to my mother it wasn't remarkable or very memorable. That's why it took her so long to paint it, she says. Why she would stop before it after church, hoping for inspiration to strike. And it's why she eventually embellished a tree in the lower left corner. And then added 2 more touches of nature to make the painting more interesting. Inevitably, I'll drive by the sign one day and it won't be there. And soon after that, the Valley Mall might not even be there. When that time comes, I will still have this painting. It will still evoke all sorts of memories, including those of my mother, as she leans toward her easel in the night and labors over the tree in the bottom corner. One brushstroke, then another, getting each leaf right. Thank you.
Cool. Cornerstone Theater Company is celebrating 30 years of making new plays with and about communities, valuing the artist in everyone and operating on the conviction that artistic expression is civic engagement. Now, today's show has illuminated some of the diverse yet interconnected experiences that manifest here in Los Angeles. And this next piece, written by artistic director Michael John Garces and directed by associate artistic director Daniel Pania, speaks directly to that. Please join me in welcoming to the stage some friends of mine, family even, Cornerstone Ensemble members Marcenis MC Earl, and past Cornerstone community members Natalie Venegas, Jared Ross, Bethany Nava, Kenneth Ramos, Cecilia Dominguez for their performance of Where I'm From.
When you ask me 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 where I'm from.
I'm an LA native. What can I say? Born and raised. Watts is where I'm from. Marcenis Earl is my name, but most people call me MC. I was born in LA. I believe it was a hospital off of King Boulevard, but back then it was called Santa Barbara Boulevard.
I'm from Los Angeles. I'm part of the city right here, LA. My name is Ceci Dominguez. Ceci for Cecilia, but everybody just calls me Ceci. I was born on 2nd Street near the Rampart area, and I was born at home in our house.
My name's Kenneth Ramos, but most people call me Kenny. I'm originally from the Barona Indian Reservation east of San Diego. I came to Los Angeles in 2008 to go to UCLA. I had just graduated high school, just turned 18, and I've been here ever since.
Me? I'm Natalie. I was born in Montebello, but grew up both in the city of Whittier and Azusa.
Hi, my name is Bethany, but you can call me B because everyone calls me B. I came to Los Angeles 3 years ago, and in April of next year, it'll be 4 years. I used to live in El Paso, Texas, and I lived there until I was 14.
I'm Jared. I came from Greenwich, Connecticut, and I got here 3.5 years ago, October 2013.
When you ask me where I am.
When you ask me where I am.
In Los Angeles, I've been moving around the west side. I want to move to Hollywood where I went to school. I studied professional makeup and I want to do mostly special effects.
West Side, yeah, mostly. I mean, I went to school on the West Side, I work on the West Side, and I live on the West Side. In Palms, I don't know if that's a real area, but it seems to be a real area because people call it that and I live there. Palms. I guess I just want to say I'm from Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, I would say I'm from Homeboy Industries because, growing up, I never had a stable place. In 2010, I was in the last stages of my rehab, and my friend tells me, go to Homeboys, you'll get more support. I felt so welcome. I have my own place now. I live with my son in Amani, that's right there in the San Gabriel Valley, a few miles from downtown LA.
When you ask me where I am.
I live in North Hollywood. My neighborhood is just a neighborhood of apartments, and I live in apartment number 3. It's pretty central to everything. We're right in the middle. And right now, I'm a junior at Grand Arts High.
In Watts, I'm closer to the Jordan-Down projects than any other parts, though I didn't live in the projects, but close by. When you're from Watts, people always ask you, well, which projects?
When you ask me where I am.
Right now, I live in Frogtown, which is Elysian Valley, adjacent to the LA River. My communities are right there: Cypress Park, Lincoln Heights, Glassell, Highland Park, Atwater Village.
I'm a college student at East LA College. I identify with the communities that don't have a voice, immigrants, women. Now that I found mine, I want to be in a place to help people find theirs.
When you ask me where I am,
I belong to the black male community, the single parent community, the acting community, or maybe I should just say the theater community. And I also have strong ties to the hip hop community and just music in general, really just a strong tie with artists.
For me, it's twofold. I belong to the disenfranchised and I belong to the driven. And I want to do big things, and it all goes back to art. I don't want to sell out, but I don't want to be trapped in the underground either. I want to make it, but I want to make it meaningful.
art's for me too. I never really belonged in the sports community or others. It's always been my outlet when I'm stressed. It's a huge part of who I am.
The first community for me is the Native American community of Los Angeles. There's the Gabrielino Tongva. We're on their homelands, but there's a really huge, diverse urban Native population right here in LA. Also the LGBT community. There's even a Native American LGBT project that I used to work for that I'm still a part of. My best friend, she's Samoan, so I find a lot of support there too, in the Polynesian community.
When you ask me where I am,
Proud of where I'm from, but man, growing up there, surviving, just trying to fit in with the gang culture of Los Angeles and not get caught up in it, I had to straddle the fence and figure out which side to land on. And right now, I'm just trying to find stability in life, not just survive, steady and stable.
Moving to LA, being away from my family, all my immediate family is still in Texas. That was really hard, missing them. But here in LA, there's so many opportunities, and I love that. But I am the harshest critic I know. I want to be an actress, and I want to perform, so I'm pushing myself.
I never felt accepted anywhere. I joined a gang. A lot of it had to do with the abuse I suffered as a child. I was a heavy drug user, and that landed me in prison. Every time I would get out, I had no job skills, so I would just end up right back in. Now I'm a case manager at Homeboy Industries, working with people, their challenges, prison records, bad credit, minimum wage, trying to help them find housing, childcare. It could be hard on me, but I love my job. I love working with people.
The transition, coming from a small reservation where everybody knows each other, to UCLA, to Los Angeles, which are huge, that was big. The challenge was finding people who understood me. People would always ask, how much Indian are you? Or they'd say, you're just Mexican. But I finally connected with the vibrant Native community here in LA. Now I wonder what the next chapter is for me. LA is a great place to explore different things. I just have to decide what's next.
In my community, we are dealing with issues of racism and economics. Different people are moving into our communities. We don't know who they are. How do we work together to bring things back into focus and make a change? We're on our own, and where's the help? Where's the people who are supposed to help us, and how will we have the strength to do it?
I'm sober now, but I had some real trouble shooting meth and heroin. There's also been a lot of deaths of people close to me during the last few years. I've lost people close to me due to drug overdoses, to suicide. I'm trying to figure out how to get some stability with the life of an artist and balance taking care of others while taking care of myself, which sometimes I'm not so good at. Balance.
When I look around, I see.
When I look around.
When I look around, I.
When I look around, I see.
When I look.
When I look around.
I see what people seem not to see. I see homelessness. I see the unseen and the unheard.
I see traffic. People trying to get where they're going, but not thinking about other people and where they're trying to go.
I see trash piling up, making Los Angeles an ugly place.
I see gentrification, development, but for who?
I see mental health treatment being far too expensive for many of the people who need it most.
I see distrust between the Spanish-speaking community and the black community, and between people of color and law enforcement. And it's just bad. We gotta have faith.
But also when I look.
But when
I look around.
I see the Los Angeles Metro expanding across the county.
I see the possibilities of a new football team, new stadium, new jobs.
When I look around.
When I really look.
I see people making things happen, coming together on social media for art, food, and social justice.
When I look around.
I see the successes we've had in our community, how people have come together, how we have made change happen.
I see opportunity. real opportunity to make myself into whatever I want to be and to make whatever I want to create.
When I look,
I see neighborhoods being revitalized, one of the most diverse cities in the world, growing.
This is where I am. I'm a first-generation college graduate. My mom's Native American, my dad's Hawaiian Filipino, but on both sides, me and my sister were the first, UCLA and Berkeley. Oh, and I ran the LA Marathon.
This is where I am. I'm learning a new craft, face painting, prosthetics, special effects, and people are interested in it, in my vision. They value it, and they respect me for it.
this is where I am. My son living with me. I've been clean and out of prison for over 7 years, and I'm working toward that with my daughter, too. I'm a good mom.
This is where I am. I'm proud of how focused I am right now, studying acting and really looking at people, how they interact, thinking about my future.
This is where I am. I graduated from high school, graduated from college, but a big success was living past the age of 16 when most of my friends didn't, and raising my daughter and my nieces and nephews and helping them to graduate. And now I'm going to do the same thing for my granddaughter.
And this is where I am, involved in my community, involved in politics, with a group of women empowering women and making change, making it happen.
I hope the trash gets picked up and the creativity never stops flowing.
My hope is for a more communal identity, more camaraderie than competition. We're all Angelinos, whether you're from K-Town, East Los, Southgate, the Valley, or West Covina.
My hope is that Los Angeles is a place where my grandson Ricky can get a good education and have a good, safe, healthy, and prosperous life in our community.
I hope to see LA become a place where people are looking out for each other more. Not just handouts, but rehabilitation, empowerment.
I hope the Lakers start winning. I hope arts programs for kids expand. Kids meet other kids, learn empathy. The arts saved my life as a kid, and I want to see them for everyone.
I hope we invest in our communities instead of our prisons.
I'm gonna be self-supporting. No more help from my family or food stamps. Get a job that makes me feel like, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this.
I'm going to graduate from college with a degree in marriage and family therapy.
I'm hopefully going to become a professional actress and maybe teach kids some acting, help them use their creativity for good.
I'm going to keep on acting. Maybe do a little film, a little television, use theater for social change, and maybe start my own company and hire some young people.
I'm going to dance. I want to be a dancer. At my age, I want to perform. I get happy just thinking about it.
I'm going to go to graduate school, hopefully figure out my life, and continue to contribute to and serve the American Indian community.
That's my Los Angeles.
That's who I am.
This is where I'm going.
Where I live.
Where I am.
This is where I'm from.
This is where I'm from.
And all right, and that's our show. Can we get our performers back out here? Everybody back out here. All our performers back out here. Keep going. Another round of applause for our performers and our storytellers. Yes, yes, yes. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. There we go. Yeah. Look at that. Stand. All right, now, real quick, since this is an experiment, we need y'all to help us out. So if you would, take out your phones, ignore all the notifications you missed, and please let us know if you would come to another UnHeard LA show. So text UnHeard LA to, there it is, see it? 63735 and answer 2 quick questions. And make sure you check the spelling. Don't let autocorrect get the best of you. And if you do want to check out another UnHeard LA show, you can get more information at kpcc.org/UnHeardLA. Thank you again, John, Ashley, and the entire KPCC In Person team, including our photographer, Bill Youngblood. Thank you also to Quetzal for use of Unbound from the album The Eternal Get Down as our theme song. And thank you to all of our generous storytellers, Cornerstone Theater Company, the Ruth B. Shannon Center for the Performing Arts, the California Wellness Foundation, my mom, and most importantly, you for coming out. We'll be at the Mixer, where I encourage you to meet someone new and tell them where you're from. That's our show. Bless you. Good night.